which denied Clara Bowden the waiver of a joint filing requirement for permanent residency in this country, and also the denial of asylum in this country. I'm going to first, may I reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal? I'm going to address 3 issues here. First, jurisdiction, which even though the opposition says there is none, there actually is jurisdiction for this court. Secondly, that the underlying marriage was actually good faith and has a sufficient compelling facts to override the standard of review. And the third issue is Clara Bowden qualifies for a social group and that she has a well-founded fear to qualify for asylum. Firstly, jurisdiction rests on discretion. This court has jurisdiction to review this lower decision because IJ displayed very little or no discretion in the underlying case. The relevant statute, 8 U.S.C. 1186A, states that the IJ can grant waiver in their discretion. However, this determines on certain factors, depending on what the IJ knows and decides, how much depth he puts into his opinion and how much of his personal decision-making is evident. 1252 would then kick in to prevent review if the act was purely discretionary. However, that's not the case in this matter. In fact, quoting the IJ's opinion, he even said that after reviewing the evidence, he wasn't convinced one way or the other that it was in good faith. So he is not contradicting the district director's denial of waiver. He is only enforcing it. That is the exact opposite of discretion, and there can be no protection from 1252 of his opinion.
But counsel, what's the standard for this particular issue?
If you can spot an evidence of discretion in the issue, then 1252 would kick in, such as in the Subaru or Manitoba courts.
Well, what's the burden that Ms. Bowden had in front of in the lower hearings? What's the burden that she carried?
To persuade the IJ that she married in good faith, or in the alternative, that she qualified for asylum, and that she should stay here.
But yes, it's a substantial evidence burden, is it not?
Correct. And because that we have jurisdiction to review this case, similar to the show or Pesa courts, we can then look at the underlying issues, such as good faith and asylum. Contrary to what the opposition says, there actually is substantial evidence to find good faith for marriage in this case, and reverse that, so we can then grant her the waiver. Standard review for this is substantial evidence. The main factor, in fact the commanding factor in any kind of good faith marriage finding, is that there was a long-term intent to marry. Now that's evidence in this case, because even if someone were to say, or attempt to argue, that Clara only wanted to get a green card, that's not supported at all by what happened. When she met Archie, she got to know him to a very good extent. And even then, it was he who proposed to her. And before she would even accept, she went and got her sister's blessing on the matter. If all she wanted was to get out of the country, as the Attorney General might say, why would she need someone else's blessing in the first place? Further, let's look at what happened when she got in the United States. She became quite upset with Archie because she wanted kids. She wanted to move to a better house and get on a checking account. But Archie refused all this. She became quite upset at this. If all she wanted out of Archie was a green card, why not, as soon as she arrived in the United States on her visa, apply for asylum immediately? In fact, the record says she didn't apply for asylum for quite some time.
Counsel, isn't there a presumption if the marriage doesn't last more than 2 years that it's not a good faith marriage?
Well, Your Honor, that may be the case in some cases. However, looking at this marriage, it's evident that this, like many marriages, unfortunately, while they have an intent initially, they just don't last that long. Clara tried to make this work. During the 330 days, she cohabited with Archie out of her marriage, which was just short of the required time. Only after it came to the point, the argument came to the point that she had to move out, she moved in with her friend Asana Bay. And even then, they tried to reconcile the marriage numerous times before they had to file for the divorce. Only at that moment, after the marriage was dissolved, did the thought of applying for asylum come to mind. And of course, in the alternative, Clara should also then be granted asylum stay.
Free to look at things like the length of the marriage and the fact that she was
Archie at her job while she was working at the hotel. It wasn't simply a few days at a hotel, as the stigma of such a place might suggest. It was while she was working there for quite some time. In fact, a couple weeks while she was working there. During this time, she spent a lot of time with him, with her boss's permission because he was one of the better guests. But during that time, they went out numerous times. They had a good time, and yet again, he was going to propose. If it was her bad faith, why not simply propose to him instead? It was his decision in this matter.
But once they reached the United States, she didn't exactly spend every single night by her husband, did she?
Once you got in the United States, of course, you spent time with her friend, but that's what any one of us would do. No matter how much we love our spouse, we can't spend 24 hours a day with them. If you know her friend in town, of course you spend time with her as well. Going after to instead. It doesn't negate the fact that there was the intent initially to make this thing work. It just didn't work out, and we shouldn't penalize Clara for this marriage, which, well, it fell apart. It did still have that intent initially. Of course, asylum then should alternatively be granted to this. The first thing is the ID below said that she doesn't qualify for a right cognizable social group because it's circular. And this is not a correct analysis. The prosecution that she faces is not the marriage itself, as the IG believes, or as a holding of the quado. However, the IJ here believes that, well, what the truth of the matter here is, the persecution comes from what comes with the marriage, which isn't unique to just her marriage. It's the fact that incidentally, rape and spousal abuse have no legal remedy. Even though it's technically illegal, at least spousal abuse is, rape isn't. The police cannot do much about it, if anything. In fact, while she was in Zadinia, she complained about Mr. Top stalking her, and they just brushed her off as a private matter. And that's before she has to live in the same house with him. Once she has to live in the same house with him, there's no telling what will happen.
But there are no past incidents of rape or other physical abuse, are there?
Not physically. However, what we've already seen is Mr. Top Jr.'s tendency for violence, his alcoholism, his mental instability, which, as I've said before, that's not while they're living in the same house, but that's all we can tell from right now. The first time he touches her in a more aggressive way than just touching her inappropriately could be far worse than what we've seen so far. And by that time, it'll be too late. She'll already be gone with no remedy at all. We have the chance right now to do something about it, and we should in all good conscience. She has a well-founded fear, because like I said, the police of Zadinia cannot do anything about it. Her parents were unsympathetic. In fact, when she tried to get out of the marriage initially, they were of no help. There's no way to get out of this marriage when she gets back.
Well, what about the fact that she was married to someone here for almost 2 years? I mean, wasn't she out of that situation then?
Well, this marriage is different from that. Archie wasn't a government official who, in effect, bought her, like Mr. Tops Jr. did. She can't just leave Mr. Tops Jr. because he'll be able to locate her then. She won't be able to simply file for divorce, like Archie did in the U.S. It'll be a far more oppressive situation for her if she has to go back.
Well, then restate my question. I mean, if the whole argument is that she's in fear of persecution, it seems like, well, the marriage here wasn't, perfect. Why did she stay in the marriage?
Did you say, why did she stay in the
Why
marriage?
didn't she stay in the marriage, Mr. Jones?
Well, the reason why the marriage eventually ended when he filed for divorce was because no matter how much you love someone, it could be for a couple years, 20 years, it might just not work out that well because it wasn't either planned very well, or there might be differences that he might not have noticed while they were living, or staying rather, in Zadinia. That doesn't mean she had bad faith. We shouldn't punish her because she can't detect someone's personality underlying. That's all we have here. In fact, it was just short of the required time, during which she didn't even pursue any other remedy, which she does now, because she had the full faith, confidence, and desire for the marriage to work. And unfortunately, it didn't as she planned. I see that I am out of time. Was there any other questions?